Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Natural Products Expo 2008. We're at the American Palm Oil Council exhibit here at this wonderful, wonderful event, and I'm here with Dr. Pramod Khosla, one of the premier experts in the world in heart health, and Andrew Bunger. And gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Good morning.
You guys have been really, really busy here traveling. Matter of fact, just getting in here and traveling all over the country talking about palm oil and heart health. And we'll start with Dr. Khosla here. Doctor, last year we talked about the advances in palm oil, some of the new events taking place with the restaurant industry, the food industry. Let's go, talk about that a little bit, talk about heart health, and then we'll get into some more of the basics here.
Okay, Ray, well, as you and your listeners will remember, this is all started from a couple of years ago when legislation was introduced putting trans fats on the label. And since then, several industry people have been trying to come up with new products which are essentially low in trans or free from trans. And of course, on the flip side, in several cities, starting with New York, there was a ban imposed on using trans fat in restaurants. And yesterday, Boston became the latest city to actually ban trans fats from essentially commercial operations. So within a year, there are supposed to be no trans fats in restaurant foods, in hospitals, in schools. So they've basically given folks 1 year to essentially eliminate the process. So obviously people are looking for alternatives, and I think my colleague will be able to fill you in on some of those products. Now, in relation to heart health in general, we were discussing this a few minutes ago. The consumer is a lot more aware of what is good for their health. Everybody is fully aware that physical activity is important, and more people are paying attention to diet. And you can gauge that from the fact that when you're in the supermarket, there are so many new products that are out there which are basically touting heart health.
Absolutely, doctor. I mean, when I go in, I see more and more targeting that market, heart health. So what that's telling me, and in your expert opinion also, is that more awareness. The awareness is as high as it's been ever, and that's getting to be more and more now with the legislation that is passing, especially with the restaurants. That's a big one.
Yes, that is a big one, because the problem, well, not the problem, one of the things with restaurants has been is there was no labeling law in effect. I mean, you order something on the menu doesn't actually tell you what the ingredients are, and that's not something that was covered by, you know, the traditional food nutrition label. So the fact that we've gone into restaurants and now saying that trans has to be eliminated obviously creates a new level of awareness, because obviously the consumer, when they go in, they're going to want to know, well, does this product have any trans fat? Did you make this with partially hydrogenated vegetable oil? So restaurants are going to have to now cater for their customers. And then the fact that local agencies are saying there's going to be a penalty, as in the case with Boston, what sort of impetus will that have on the restaurants? Only time will tell.
We'll get back to you in just a minute, Doctor. Andrew, good to see you again. You're a busy, busy man traveling from everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And I just flew in from Florida yesterday.
Well, talk to our viewing audience here about your area of expertise with palm oil.
Well, my name is Andrew Bunger, and I work for Fuji Vegetable Oil. I'm the director of sales at one of the largest palm oil refiners in the United States. I've been there with 11 years and have quite a bit of experience over going from a time when palm oil was not accepted in the United States to a time now when it's widely accepted and even being promoted. And like Dr. Khosla said, we see it now in the restaurants and even places where we don't see it specifically on the label.
Absolutely, and this is actually it's really nice to see, because as I was just talking a second ago with Dr. Khosla, the awareness now, people are more and more aware. It's more of a savvy type of consumer now that is more and more health conscious.
That's absolutely right, and palm oil is an important part of that, because to get once we eliminated trans fats in the diet in the United States, or trans fats have been pushed out largely of a lot of the consumer products, you still need the functionality. You still want pie crust that tastes good, that's nice and flaky, and without trans fat, really the best solution and the only cost-effective solution is to use palm oil in those blends.
That's a really good point, though. Functionality. I mean, you want to be healthy, but you also want it to taste good, not like a piece of cardboard.
Well, that's right. We've seen many products over the years that were healthy and very good for you, but never made it in the market because they don't taste good. And palm oil is used all over the world in many applications, and it's really the only way we're going to go in the United States from a cost and a functionality standpoint after we've eliminated trans.
Now, doctor, you travel around the world, you lecture, you're an expert in heart health. how is the palm oil? How is it affecting people in the United States and around the world? Is it different in other parts of the world than it is here in the United States?
Yes, Ray, that's actually a very good point because globally the situation with palm oil is completely different from what it is in the U.S. A lot of your listeners may not know this, but if you look at the global fats and oils trade, there's about 17 oils that are traded commercially. And soybean oil and palm oil are the numbers 1 and 2. And they account for more than half of the global fats and oil production. And then the fact is that palm oil is produced in countries where populations are small, so most of it ends up being exported. So as far as global trade is concerned, palm oil is the major oil that is traded worldwide.
Your expert opinion here, were some trends that we're heading to, the usage of palm oil, anything that you can tell our viewing audience as where we're going with all of this?
Right, and I think Dr. Khosla brings up a good point that biodiesel has had a big effect on the markets. And one thing we need to keep in mind is any product that is sold into a retail market has to have a good price. And worldwide, palm oil and soybean oil are roughly equivalent, like Dr. Khosla mentioned. And one thing that's important to keep in mind is that palm oil actually still trades at a discount to soybean oil worldwide. So that means not only do you have the good functionality of palm oil, but it's actually the cheapest oil out there right now. Ever since about a year and a half ago, when biodiesel came onto the scene in a big way, vegetable oils have been trading like fuel. So that's the way the markets look at them now. They don't look at it as food anymore, but they look at it as fuel. And so what's happened is the price of a lot of commodities, we've seen the price of gold and petroleum double, triple sometimes, and the same thing's happened with vegetable oils. So now the consumer has to be very conscious about the cost. And palm oil is beautiful because right now it is the largest manufactured volume-wise in the world, and it's also the cheapest.
Maybe I should put palm oil in my car on the way home, but gas is so expensive out here.
Well, it's funny, Ray, because in Malaysia, they've been running pilot programs for several years now where they've been trying to use palm oil as a fuel. And there are a few Mercedes out there which do run on palm oil, which has been refined. So that's one of the side uses that is there.
Okay, now, overall, in America, what is your opinion about heart health in America? Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Where do we stand with that?
Oh, well, definitely we're getting better. There's no question about that. Now, whether diet is the contributor or one of the contributors, we don't really know. It's probably a combination of factors. Obviously, people do pay more attention to diet. We're more aware of the need for physical activity. We have a fantastic healthcare system. So we are able to diagnose the signs of heart disease at a much, much earlier age. So all of these things are contributing. And if you look over the last 30, 40 years, the incidence of heart disease has declined dramatically. It's still the #1 cause of death, but considering where we were about 30, 40 years ago, we've made a big improvement. So I think diet is a contributing factor, and that's because it's one of the things that, we have control over. You can decide if you want to eat 10 cheeseburgers or 1 cheeseburger or none at all. So the fact that you have a choice, obviously it makes a contribution. Genetics makes a contribution. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about our genes. We can definitely, exercise more or expend more activity. The fact that we've decided not to smoke, now we're talking about only 25% of the adults in the U.S. smoke, which is a big reduction from the old days. So that's been a contributing factor. So I think all of these things have helped, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay, Andrew, in your opinion, your expert opinion here, you travel around the states, around the world as well, some trends that you see taking place, good trends, bad trends, where are we headed?
For palm oil, health-wise, one thing that we've seen in the United States is a big expansion after trans fat was eliminated, and it's important to realize that the consumer is getting it in areas where they don't even realize it now. What's happened is a few years ago, you had the retail market switched away from trans, and you can pick up a package and look on the back of the label. But now with the ban in New York and recently Boston and other cities and municipalities in the United States, consumers are getting palm oil now in products at their university, at any government institutions, and in restaurants. So it's very important to understand that this is one of the most recent trends, that this heart healthy and eliminating trans and moving more towards palm oil and blends of palm oil with liquid oils is showing up in places where the consumer doesn't even realize it's there. And that's a good trend. It's a positive trend for health and for cost.
I like the fact that both of you have stated that our schools are adopting better health practices because, there's an epidemic with obese kids, and now they're finally getting it in the schools. The people that are the decision makers that. We got to change. We have to change because our kids are the ones that are suffering for this, and that's really nice that both of you have said that palm oil is being added into the diets and into the schools, and there's a lot more that it's taking place in those areas.
Yes, in fact, in Michigan, this happened about 3-4 years ago. The Troy School District, and Troy is one of the suburbs where we live, and that's about 20 miles north of Detroit. About 3-4 years ago, the Troy School District basically came up with a formulation that they wanted to get rid of trans. And one of the things they settled on was a product called, can I say a commercial name? Why not? It's called Caratino. It is available in the supermarkets, but Caratino is basically a blend of canola oil and red palm oil. So, as Andrew mentioned, you don't have to use one oil by itself. You can certainly blend. And in the case of this product that the Troy School District adopted, it's a blend of, the bulk of it is actually canola, and a small amount is red palm oil to get the functionality. And with that, they managed to eliminate trans. Now, obviously, we grow a lot of soybean oil. So we need to find ways to eliminate trans, which also utilizes our, inherent crops that we grow. So there are formulations using soybean oil that are in the market. There are genetically modified versions of soybean oil that people are also looking at. But then when you're going with genetically modified, then the other thing you have to look at is what will be the consumer perception with regards to GMO foods. Is that something that's going to be viable in the long run? Time will tell. I mean, there are various alternatives as far as getting trans out of schools are concerned. I think one of the first things that has to happen is there has to be some sort of legislation, because you can start off with schools doing it voluntarily, but invariably the cost is the big factor. And unless the local agency says, no, you have to do this from a health perspective, there's no impetus for the schools unless it is financially viable.
I think you bring up a good point in that blends are becoming more and more common, where in the past we've gone with single oils that were hydrogenated, for example, hydrogenated soybean oil. Now you're seeing blends of liquid oils like soybean oil and palm oil together to come up with the same functionality. And this is definitely a trend that we're headed towards, is a kind of a meeting of the minds, wherein before you had the two camps were at each other's throats, and now that they're really working together and looking to come up with more and better blends of oils that serve the retail companies' needs, and also meet the good price point for them as well.
Absolutely, there has to be that combination to make this whole thing successful. This has been really eye-opening here, Doctor and Andrew. It's always a pleasure to talk to both of you because you're such experts and bring something new every time we talk. Closing comments here, just a few things you want to say to our audience here in closing.
Well, the standard mantra of a nutritionist: variety, balance, and moderation. There's no magic bullet. You have to pay attention to the total diet, and there's lots of ways of formulating a healthy diet, a heart healthy diet. And since we're at the Palm Oil Council, yes, palm oil is definitely a component of that diet. And keep it varied, keep it simple, and remember to exercise.
And Andrew?
Well, I'll give the standard mantra of a salesman and say, buy more palm oil, actually, and look for it on the labels, because it is something that's healthy and it tastes good.
If you're going to buy something, you might as well buy something that's healthy, tastes good, and is really, really good for you.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure seeing you again. Much continued success, Doctor. Andrew, you too. This is Ray Barr at the American Palm Oil Council at the Natural Products Expo 2008.